Marketplace is supported by Putnam Investments, recognizing the value of financial advice since 1937. Putnam Investments, a world of investing. Produced in association with the University of Southern California.
Here's a phrase that last year some on Wall Street thought they might never hear again. General Motors reported second quarter profits today. $1.3 billion worth, in fact. Compare that to a $13 billion loss in the same period last year, and you have to wonder, are the big three back? From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Thomson Reuters, a source of intelligent information to businesses and professionals around the world. Thomson Reuters, knowledge to act. And by Progressive Insurance, helping people shop for car insurance at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com.
From the Frank Stanton Studios in Los Angeles, I'm Tess Vigland in for Kai Ryssdal. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday. It is the 12th day of August. So here are the undeniable signs of progress emanating from General Motors today. There's that $1.3 billion in profits I just mentioned. Second quarter in a row of good news from the balance sheet. There is also word on the street that the company will file papers for an IPO as soon as tomorrow. And CEO Ed Whitacre announced he will step down on September 1st, little more than a year after being tapped by the Obama administration to help turn GM around. Board member Daniel Akerson will succeed him. Joining us from New York to talk about what all this means for GM and the Big Three is our own Elisa Roth. Hi, Elisa.
Hello, Tess.
Remind us where GM was when it declared bankruptcy last summer. I know we're going back in history a little bit, but...
We are, and you have to remember that GM's troubles started well before bankruptcy and well before the financial crisis. For starters, it had too many factories. It had too many workers who were costing the company tons of money. It was building far more vehicles than the market needed, which meant that it had to offer all kinds of incentives in order to sell those vehicles. Mm-hmm. And there were too many dealers trying to sell those vehicles. Meanwhile, despite or because of all this, the company was actually losing market share. And I mean, there was a period where it seemed like it could actually go out of business.
And it wasn't the only one that it seemed could go out of business. I mean, the big three were really in a lot of trouble. But here we are, barely a year later, and at least General Motors is posting a profit of $1.3 billion in the second quarter, possibly getting ready for a huge IPO. What happened?
Well, as one of my sources put it, GM went through a big rinse cycle. Michael Robinett is an auto analyst at IHS Global Insight. He says GM and the other Detroit car makers, to some extent, have finally figured it out.
In terms of building residual value, building better product, making sure your facilities are better utilized, and really focusing more on the bottom line rather than expanding the top line.
So what that means in practical terms is it renegotiated with the unions on both salaries and on benefits, which was at least as important. It shut down a lot of plants. It really streamlined the manufacturing process, so it's making vehicles more cheaply. It got rid of half of its brands so it can focus much more on the brands it kept. And it's cut its dealer network by about 25%. There are two other key factors here. One is that bankruptcy let GM wipe out its debt, so it really got to start over. The other thing is GM is finally building vehicles that drivers want.
Well, it certainly sounds like things are now going swimmingly for GM. And of course, Ford has been in repair for the last year as well. So back to GM, when they do the IPO, should we be rushing to invest?
Maybe. I mean, first of all, we should remember that the auto industry globally is doing much, much better than it was. Mm-hmm. So yes, GM is doing very well, but it's partly because the whole industry is in better shape. I asked Michael Robinett that same question you asked me. He says he thinks the heavy lifting at GM has been done, that the company just needs to keep pushing its plans forward, maybe make a few minor tweaks. But GM does still have some real issues to deal with. Sales are up so far this year, but they're up less than the industry average. Sales at rival Ford are up about